Beaver Dam, Wisconsin's got peppers and a stage. Beaver Dam, Kentucky's where Bill Monroe first played. Beaver Dam, anywhere the people all say, have a gosh dang beaver darn great damn day.
And welcome back to the Great Beaver Fiasco.
You can't come back to a program that has... This is our first episode.
But we are back, the three of us, in front of mics.
Yeah, we're friends returning to what we love to do.
Sharing knowledge, information.
We are the Great Beaver Fiasco podcast. Brought to you by Supper Club Media. Please like us on YouTube.
Or you can also watch us on Spotify, but also like us there.
When are we going to start the podcast?
Do you not like? Okay, well, no.
Is this the podcast?
No, let's restart.
You don't have to
right
restart
now.
it.
No, I'm going back. We're in black right now. All right, smile. You're back on camera. Is that weird? You put on your makeup, right? You guys did makeup before this?
I very rarely wear makeup. But
I very rarely wear makeup.
Really?
You could probably use a little touch.
That's not that surprising. Maybe
I know Thomas puts on a little, right?
Well, honestly, I need a lot around my eyebrows.
No, your eyebrows are perfect.
No, they're like Canadian forests. They're just sporadic trees popping over the place.
Do you normally have a unibrow?
Okay, we're not talking. No,
we never called it a unibrow. We called it two caterpillars shaking hands.
Two caterpillars.
And welcome back to the Great Beaver Fiasco. Makes sense now because we're restarting it officially. The Fiasco, you guys, we should probably explain what is the Fiasco really about. So we're three friends. We're from Beaver Dam, Wisconsin. LA, take it from there.
Take it from here. We're from Beaver Dam, Wisconsin. We used to work together.
Actually, I'm not from Beaver Dam, Wisconsin. I'm from Chicago.
I'm not from Beaver Dam, Wisconsin either, and neither are you.
I'm not from Beaver Dam.
Well, he's closest geographically.
So that's a great conversation to have for the Great Beaver Fiasco.
We're not going there. So the Great Beaver Fiasco, we're talking about Beaver Dam. We're talking about the animal, the beaver, because I think the beaver is really having a comeback, you guys. I think people are realizing that this industrious, hardworking, aquatic mammal really represents a lot of people that are struggling, industrious, and just trying to have the willpower and creativity to make things happen in life.
The tenacity to keep things going when it seems like maybe it's not going to work.
Gumption. Good old-fashioned gumption.
And teeth.
And big old yellow teeth. Do you know why beaver teeth are yellow?
I thought they were orange.
Okay, orange. Why are they orange?
Is it because of melatonin?
Is that why they're so sleepy?
They have more iron in their bones than magnesium.
Wow.
I believe that's the answer. Yes.
Well, not just talking about beavers. We're going to be talking about beaver communities across this country because a lot of these communities are just like the beaver. They're very peculiar. They're very unusual. And they have a lot of perseverance and determination. And they just change things a little bit. Beaver Dam, Kentucky. Beaver Dam, Wisconsin. Beaverton, Oregon?
Beaver Dam, South Carolina. There in the state of Arizona, there is a beaver dam. However, nobody lives in it because it was just a piece of land that had to be designated by the U.S. Census. It had to be given any name, and they just decided to name it Beaver Dam. Why? You'll have to listen to future episodes because I don't know right now.
How ironic.
Mm-hmm.
That is fair. So the structure of the show, because this is our first show, and we should probably give a little layout here, we're going to be discussing some of the news stories from these beavers across this great country of ours. We also have, and I'm very excited about this, a special guest.
A very special guest for our first episode.
That's right. Paranormal investigator Zelia Edgar of Beaver Dam, Wisconsin, of the YouTube channel Just Another Tinfoil Hat.
And also her book, Just Another Tinfoil Hat Presents.
Now, you were actually a takeover host of that show at one point.
I did a couple of episodes. Yes, I took it over when she was out doing some research and gallivanting across this Midwestern.
That was very insightful. Ellie, you are the peanut butter of this show. You are keeping us together.
Who's the jam?
I would prefer to be the jam.
Okay. Is this just like an open-faced sandwich?
Maybe an apricot jam.
Well, I actually love open-faced peanut butter sandwiches.
Well, isn't that just called toast?
It's just peanut butter toast at that point.
Well, if you toast it, then it's called toast. But if it's just the bread, then it's just an open-faced peanut butter sandwich.
I call that sadness in 30 seconds.
Sadness in 30 seconds?
Yeah. You can make it in 30 seconds like, well, I guess this is the only thing I have time to eat right now. This
Really?
will have to do.
I actually seek those out.
Got me through college.
Yeah. In fact, the past couple of days, I don't know what's been going on. There's magic in the peanut butter and jam. I've been having the most delicious open-faced peanut butter and jam sandwich ever.
So that's interesting because typically when you make peanut butter jelly sandwiches, you've got the peanut butter on one side, you've got the jam on the other, and then you bring them together. But you're telling me, L.A. Bass, that I'm not L.A. Bass, she's L.A. Bass. You're telling me that you put the peanut butter on the bread.
Yes.
And then you put the jam on top of the peanut butter.
I do. I have. Like, you don't spread the peanut butter to all the corners of the bread. You leave some,
Because
vacant bread for the jam, and then you mix it together and swirl it.
It's so difficult to put jelly on top of peanut butter.
I'll show you how to do it
I
someday.
know it's possible, but I mean, it's just frustrating.
So you're using your peanut butter as a spackle, and you're just spackling the corners of the sandwich?
You know what's interesting about this is that I spread the peanut butter on the bread, and then so as to not make another dish dirty or another utensil dirty, I use the same knife for the jam that I used on the peanut butter, but I take the peanut butter off the knife on the empty part of the bread, and then it's a clean knife, and then you put it in the jam. Therefore, not getting any peanut butter in the jam jar.
But still cross-contaminating the knife.
And so this is pretty much what the podcast is going to be about.
With maybe a little bit of structure. Peanut butter is one of your favorite foods, but I think we also have some favorite things about Beaver Dam, and we're going to be able to share our 3 favorite things along with our special guest, Zelia Edgar, coming up in a little bit.
Now, is that going to be our 3 favorite things or 3 of our favorite things each for a total of 9? Or is it going to be a total of 3?
No, a total of 12, because we have 4 people
That's
here.
right. It's gonna be
Okay.
12.
12 favorite things about Beaver Dam. We're going to get a check of our Dam news right after this.
Beaver Dam's New York is where the dead once played.
Nearby.
Beaver Dam, Wisconsin's where Fred McMurray was raised. Beaver Dam, anywhere's a great place to stay and have a gall-dang beaver darn great damn day.
Clowns and animals of all descriptions brought from the Circus World Museum at Baraboo's.
A lot of duck soup that baby will make.
A little later, the space monkeys meet the press.
Better, more bombastic than any other.
The huge craft exploded while docking and blazed to a fiery end.
With subversive propaganda. Numbers who were fleeing to the west threw up the wall.
Mass marches, rallies, and demonstrations.
Democracy, in order to live, must become a positive force in the daily lives of its people.
And now it's time for your Dam News with Craig Warmbold.
After nearly 7 years as the mayor of the city of Beaver Dam, Becky Gluen is no longer in the position. Gluen's last day on the job was last Thursday, February 1st, 2024. She stepped down to take a position as the Trempealeau County Administrator. Gluen tells the Great Beaver Fiasco that her proudest achievement was transforming the culture of Beaver Dam. She says, quote, "We have worked to create a community that people are truly proud to call home." Gluen goes on to say, "Together we have built a city that embraces innovation, opportunity, and a strong sense of community." And Gluen concludes her comments by saying that she looks forward to Beaver Dam's continued progress. Of course, her departure leaves a vacancy in the mayor's seat through April of 2025. There is a plan in place to have an interim alderperson assume that position until a interim election can be held, likely in November of this year. Hasn't been decided as of the taping of this podcast, but I, for one, think that L.A. Bass should run for mayor.
It is an excellent. You would have no competition. You realize you would win hands and feet down.
You know what? Maybe you're right. I think I'm going to take this on because actually the mayor of L.A., of Los Angeles, her last name is Bass.
Oh, you can't ignore coincidence like that.
Yeah, I know. It's synchronicity.
Well, Mayor Bass is going to have a update on the plight of the beaver here in the United States in just a little bit. But first, Thomas.
I know I'm charged up about this story, Craig, and so is Beaverton, Oregon. It was a gosh dang Beaverton Great Dam Day in the Beaverton, Oregon School District this past week as the Environmental Protection Agency, the EPA, awarded a $20 million grant to the Beaver Dam Transportation Department. The money will be used for the purchase of 50 electric buses. And speaking of Beaverton, Oregon, you can also check out our Facebook page, the
Great Beaver Fiasco.
because we also have a story about a man in Beaverton, Oregon, who skis the streets of Beaverton after their most recent storm.
Yeah, so check us out. And while you're on the interweb, don't forget to please subscribe to our YouTube channel, Supper Club Media. And now our wildlife correspondent.
We don't want people subscribing because that means people are going to be watching, but there's more pressure on us to do things right.
Yeah, that's
Pressure
we're gonna
makes perfect.
Yeah.
I don't want more pressure.
We're going to have future episodes. That's the plan.
Nobody wants diamonds anymore. They want zirconium. Or they want some other way of expressing love.
And now our wildlife correspondent, L.A. Bass.
From Plumas County, California, and now a story about our furry West Coast friends. California recently reintroduced beavers into the wild, a whole family of beavers, the first time such a thing has been done in nearly 75 years. The California Department of Fish and Wildlife and other partnering agencies and local tribes worked together in releasing the beaver family of 7 into a tribal community in Plumas County. The family was matched with a lone beaver that was already in the valley. The goal is to reestablish a new breeding population that is intended to help expand the mountain meadow ecosystem. Governor Gavin Newsom cited the leadership of their tribal partners in years of preparation in comments saying, beavers are returning to their original homeland in California. Beaver habitat restoration is becoming a larger part of an effort to combat drought, climate change, and wildfires. The beaver release is phase 1 of the California Department of Fish and Wildlife's North American Beaver Restoration Project. The next phase will focus on the Tule River Reservation in southern Sierra Nevada.
Now, I wonder how that lone beaver that was in the valley before this family showed up, I wonder how he's taking this. If he was like a, kind of an introvert and he wanted just the area all to himself, or if he's like, oh, God, finally, somebody's here.
It's hard to say because they do say that loneliness is just failed solitude, and maybe he enjoyed his solitude.
That's a good point.
Maybe that beaver is just as philosophical as you are and now is contemplating all these life's questions of what to do with its own time.
Maybe. Well, I hope they have a big dam for all these beavers.
And speaking of dams, Beaver County Bears. They got a polar plunge that recently took place. More than 600 residents in Bridgewater, Pennsylvania, took teams to, it would be better if I knew how to read. By the way, LA, let me just say, you did a perfect job for somebody who you've never worked in news a day in your life, as far as I know. You just nailed that news story.
Well, what else would you expect?
I thought her cadence was incredible.
Excellent cadence. It was remarkable, quite honestly.
Yeah.
That's being
was
submitted
very
for
surprising.
an award.
That is somebody who pre-read their story.
Actually, I did not.
Well, you didn't have to tell anyone that.
Back to you, Thomas.
Craig, I also want to congratulate you for butchering the punny headline I had there because Beaver County bears the polar plunge.
Yeah,
polar
that was a headline?
That was the pun
Beaver
title.
County bears the... Oh, well, you would spell that then B-A-R-E-S.
What? B-A-R-A-S?
Yeah.
No, you wouldn't. What are you talking about?
Yeah, they're saying they're bearing themselves, like they're getting naked and jumping into the polar plunge.
B-A-R-E-S, you said.
Yeah, it would be B-A-R-E-S.
Oh, okay. Bears.
Okay, yeah, I guess so, but I thought maybe you'd still appreciate the punny
B-A-R.
Yeah, because
first of all, you're a
polar
Packers
bear.
fan. I'm the one from Chicago.
I am
not
a Packers fan.
So you just want everybody in Wisconsin to hate this podcast? Is that what you're saying? Look at there's Packers stuff all over the walls here where we're filming.
No one else can see that right now.
Well, that's true. That's not on camera.
It's all Badger stuff.
No, that's... Oh, yeah, that is
Nope,
Camp
that's
Randall,
Camp
isn't it?
Randall.
I thought that was Lambeau.
Let's try.
Yeah.
There's
there's
over there.
Yeah, there's a signed
Pecker
Brett
over there.
Favre poster over there.
Mm-hmm.
It's not actually signed by him.
Well, who signed the Brett Favre poster that's got black ink all over
It's certainly... No, it's not him because it's like the same type. They have like hundreds of these.
Oh, so it's not personally signed.
I don't think it's personally signed.
I mean, so it's not like Amon Green signed it or something like that.
No.
I will say that even though between the three of us, our football knowledge really couldn't fill a footlocker.
Couldn't fill a deflated football.
But I will tell you that our goal, we are all in unity on this. Our goal on the Great Beaver Fiasco is to one day have Joe Namath appear on this podcast.
That is a goal. Not because of his football fame, but because of his acting and commercials.
Mm-hmm. So if you know Joe Namath, please let him know that he's invited to a podcast and he doesn't have to say anything about football. You would think he's sick about talking about football in interviews,
Can we
right?
provide a little background? Why Joe Namath?
That's a good point.
How is he connected to beavers?
He was born and raised in Beaver Falls, Pennsylvania.
There you go. That's all we need.
That's right. We want all the celebrities from all the different beavers to join us. Fred McMurray, of course, born in Beaver Dam. It's going to be a little tricky.
Yeah, where is he buried, though?
In the earth, maybe?
Well,
I
he's
guess.
not in outer space.
He
at
may
this
be
point.
cremated. We really don't know
I'm not sure about that.
which path he's probably buried somewhere.
What is
Probably
that old
California.
quote? Is it 5 degrees of Kevin Bacon?
7 degrees of
7 degrees
Bacon.
of Kevin Bacon. I think we should have like 7 degrees of like Beaver Dam because we could probably find any celebrity at least 5 to 7 degrees removed from beavers somewhere.
7 degrees of Beaver Dam.
Well, there are, current local celebrities as well. I mean, David Allen Smith.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Beaver Dam Area Community Theater managing director. He came back to Beaver Dam where he grew up. He started working in the community theater as a young lad and then went on to a very successful career in Hollywood. And he was the partner of Keanu Reeves in a movie.
Dan Aykroyd was the detective.
Keanu Reeves was the
talking
detective.
about the movie Fueling Minnesota with Cameron Diaz.
That is exactly correct. And Keanu Reeves played a detective and his partner was David Allen Smith. But Dan Aykroyd was another cop. Did you see the movie?
Have you seen the
I
movie?
have the movie. I have not seen it recently.
I own the movie as well.
I have never seen it.
Yeah, it's all right.
Is it?
I think we're going to have a Fueling Minnesota day. You know what? Maybe we'll have David Allen Smith and we can discuss that and more in a future episode of The Great Beaver Fiasco.
You can count on it.
Beaverton, Oregon's got the Jenkins Estate.
Nearby.
Beaver Falls, PA is where Joe Namath first played. Beaver Dam, Wisconsin's where the people all say, have a doggone beaver darn great damn day.
Great
Harvest Bread Company.
Yes, Great Harvest, very convenient location right on Front Street.
Check out their sandwich of the month. It's always something new and exciting and fun each time the calendar changes. And their regular sandwich menu is also amazing. Breakfast sandwiches, lunch sandwiches. My favorite is the roasted red pepper chipotle steak sandwich.
Ooh.
I love that. Yes.
Sounds good. And they do have a lot of sweet staples like the cinnamon roll, which is delicious. But they also have the sticky bun, which is pecan rolls on a cinnamon roll base. So nummy. They have lots of different cookies depending on the season. I think right now, Valentine's Day, you can go in and get an adorable cookie that you might feel like you shouldn't eat, but you are going to eat that cookie.
Eat the cookie and maybe even get a couple scones while you're at it as well. You can always check their menu, greatharvestbeaverdam.com, to find out what they are serving up. And every day of the week, they have something else on the menu. They might be serving brownies one day and then something else, maybe a monkey bread or something the other. You never really know. So check online for your next surprise at
Great
Harvest Bread Company.
And welcome back to the Great Beaver Fiasco. Almost kept a straight face there. I am one of your hosts, Thomas Rehfeldt.
I am Craig Warmbold.
I'm L.A. Bass, and we are joined with a very special guest, Beaver Dam resident, local author, paranormal investigator, YouTube channel hoster of Just Another Tinfoil Hat. Here is Just Another Tinfoil Hat, Zelia Edgar.
Well, thank you so much for having me on the podcast today. I'm really excited to be here and talking about all things weird and beaver related.
I understand that you know where Fred McMurray is buried.
Yes, I am an avid user of the site Find a Grave, and probably more than I should be. We won't get into that. Fred McMurray is buried in Culver City, California, Holy Cross Cemetery.
I want to get into that. There is a website called Find a Grave?
Absolutely. I guess we can dig into it if you want to. But
That's a good one.
A lot of genealogists use it as well.
Indeed.
So I'm big into genealogy, so that's how I am familiar with Find a Grave. I found many graves.
And I've found more graves than I...
A grave digger?
Yeah.
All
I've
right.
actually dug up a grave, but that's for another time.
Wow.
Yeah.
No kidding.
We,
you're an archaeologist for a
right.
while. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, fascinating.
And it does exactly what it says it'll do. It'll find a grave.
Now, is that just corpses, or does it also do cremated remains?
If there's a memorial or a grave site in any capacity, chances are it's on there.
So in 5 years, this show will probably be found there. Find a grave.
5 years?
I don't
very
know.
ambitious.
I
It's
don't
very
think
generous
so.
when you think about it.
So, like in the olden days, a comedian like George Burns would say, "Oh, I wake up in the morning, I check the obituary page, and if I'm not in there, then I get up." and nowadays, you could say you wake up and you check findagrave.com, and if you're not in there,
Yeah.
you're good to go. Yeah, good to go.
It's a wonderful resource. Nonetheless, yeah, it is for genealogists.
You used it as a genealogist.
I do. I use it quite often. They have photos because a lot of information is contained on a gravestone. And they have photos of many headstones.
If you're really lucky, too, sometimes they'll include like the newspaper obituary, pictures of the person when they were alive. Less often when they were dead, too. You go back to the 1800s, but that's, again, we don't need to dig into that.
We didn't call you here today to talk about findagrave.com, believe it or not. We did bring you here to talk about your YouTube channel. Tell us about Just Another Tinfoil Hat.
Yeah, so my channel, I started that back in 2017, and pretty much I just started because I have always loved the paranormal. I mean, growing up in this fantastically weird state of Wisconsin, America's scary land, there's just something about the paranormal, the weird, the bizarre that has always kind of intrigued me. And so I started my channel just kind of as an outlet for all of this research, and it's actually a lot of people enjoyed what I was putting out there. And so, I've continued making videos. I try and go at it from a more kind of high strangeness way of looking at things, a little bit more fringe than your typical fringe with, paranormal research. And yeah, it's a lot of fun.
What is high strangeness? Is that different than low strangeness?
There are different realms of strangeness when we're talking about strangeness. But technically, so you tend to think of the paranormal. A lot of people immediately think of people who look for ghosts, or maybe they think about cryptozoologists, people looking for Bigfoot. Maybe they think of ufologists, people who are interested in unidentified aerial phenomena, or as I still like to call them, UFOs. I tend to look at these things as possibly being interconnected. Maybe not all of the sightings of these different sort of anomalies all the time, but, we're talking cases where someone sees Bigfoot and then maybe suddenly for some reason they start having poltergeist phenomena in their house, or someone has a sighting of a UFO and then a couple weeks later they see a dog man. So these are the cases that kind of transcend these sort of conventional ways of looking at paranormal phenomena.
Any weird stuff going on in our backyard here at Beaver Dam, Wisconsin?
Well, Beaver Dam is a genuinely very strange place, and I know that because I have lived here for, 25 years, I believe. And, it's got some... We find numbers, multiples of 5, very funny here on the Great Beaver Fiasco.
Not 24.
Well, yes, I've lived here for a long time. I'll put it that way. Well, after being here for a long time, I guess I'll say, I can tell you that Beaver Dam is a very strange place. Not only do we have a few really kind of just locally known hauntings, such as the old community theater building, which was actually, before that, the old Baptist church, or the Beaver Dam Historical Society, which actually previous to that was the free library in town. We also have quite a few UFO sightings. If you just look at any of the UFO databases online, you'll see that, way back in 1985, a teenager was on the frozen Beaver Dam Lake when he claimed to see the cigar-shaped object that vanished into a mist. Then in 2005, 2 witnesses saw these 2 circular white lights kind of flying extremely fast parallel to one another. They crossed paths and then simply vanished. And this is all the way up to, 2010. Someone was with their son when they were driving back from the Dells, saw this multifaceted cube-like object with an amber glow. And again, even more recently, in 2020, someone claimed to see a large glowing orange orb, which had another light kind of orbiting around it. So just in Beaver Dam itself, you have, a lot of, what we would call anomalous sightings.
What are your thoughts about this kind of new development in the last few years where the government's there's unidentified stuff out there. We don't know what it is. Finally kind of laying to rest some of the conspiracies that, well, maybe not laying them to rest, but, kind of hitting this issue head on that, there's weird stuff going on there and we don't know what it is.
That is that's a double-edged can of worms if I have ever seen one. Because on the one hand, especially for people who are interested in this, who, historically have been used to UFOs being kind of the end of the newsreel, the laugh track, oh, look at what these silly people are thinking about. Again, being referred to as simply a tinfoil hat. It's nice to have some confirmation that, yes, there's something out there and we don't really know what it is. The frustration I have is kind of the lack of looking at these encounters with any sort of abstraction. Because again, focusing on the high strangeness things, this delves into kind of even almost psychological aspects. more so Jungian psychology possibly, and ties to very older traditions. And so the frustration I have with, the government coming out with all of this is that it does seem like they're really trying to pin down a very concrete physical narrative to something that I think is a little bit more complex than that.
You mentioned the Dodge County Historical Society, and I believe the current curator there, Kurt Sampson, is a wonderful guy. He's been very kind to us. But Kurt is also an expert in some of the burial mounds in the area, and we do seem to have a very high concentration of burial mounds. Is that any way connected to the sightings or activity that we may find in the Beaver Dam area?
Again, a lot of researchers have kind of put forth that there are connections there. John Keel, back in the 70s, was looking into kind of the influx of UFO sightings over these areas that have mounds. Interestingly enough, it's not restricted to North American earthworks, but even over in the UK, in any place that has these historic or prehistoric earthworks, it just seems to be that more anomalous things happen there. And again, Linda Godfrey, the late great researcher that brought the Wisconsin werewolf to the forefront, she did make the connection as well that it seemed as though a lot of these sightings and her particular, specialized interest in man-wolf sightings seemed to occur at burial mounds. So I would say that there is the likelihood of a connection there, yeah. I think that, the thing, too, that we have to remember is the common denominator to any sighting, whether it's a sighting of Bigfoot or a UFO or a ghost or anything, the common denominator is always people. There is something intrinsically human about these anomalous phenomena. And so I think that especially these sites that have historically been important for generations upon generations, it's almost like this cumulative, almost spirit of a place per se. That may be why there tends to be more anomaly that happens there.
It seems awful presumptuous to say as humans, we know everything about this realm and we know where, logic begins and ends.
Absolutely, yeah.
Speaking of where things begin and end, Beaver Dam, Wisconsin has some weird stuff going on. Any of the other beaver dams in the world have strange things happening?
Well, absolutely. It seems like there are some pretty damn strange things in all of these beaver locations. A personal favorite of mine is, of course, the infamous Mothman prophecies, which was a period of just high strangeness in the Point Pleasant area. Now, I say area because it kind of bled out around that in this time frame between November of 1966 and December of 1967. Perfect example of this is in Beaver Falls, Pennsylvania in 1966.
That's where Joe Namath is from.
Oh, wow.
Oh.
Yeah. Wow. Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you. I got excited.
A ghost,
about
right?
We're trying to get him on the show.
Yeah,
so
that's true.
Well, I wonder
if
he saw this strange being. A young man was out hunting with his dog when he claimed to see a 7-foot-tall bird-like creature. He said it almost looked like a giant ostrich in a cornfield. That was in Beaver Falls, Pennsylvania. And then in Beaver County, Pennsylvania, 2 girls in 1973 claimed to see a white-furred Bigfoot holding an orb in the woods around their house. Now, it's not all just cryptids either. Patrick Henry's Scotchtown Plantation in the unincorporated community of Beaver Dam, and that's Beaver Dam one word, Virginia, is said to be haunted by the ghost of his wife. People who work at this historic location claim to hear screams, things moving around in empty rooms. They've claimed to have found a tea caddy, which was moved from one location to another, as well as seeing the apparition of a woman in a long white dress. So, and too, in Beaver County, Oklahoma, we have also a case of ghost lights. At the turn of the last century, a farmer named William Bathlot saw them so often that he just considered them kind of part of his property. Now, one of the most interesting things, though, is that once they buzzed his wagon. Now, I say buzzed because this is what we refer to when we currently have UFO sightings that buzz cars, where they fly very close to the vehicles. These ghost lights did the same thing to his wagon, frightened his horses. In another time, he was looking for a lost cow with a neighbor when they came upon another of these ghost lights. He said that they just stood there watching it, terrified, when finally he raised his pistol to it, at which point it vanished. So, yeah, wherever you go, whatever beaver it is, it seems like there's weirdness.
Yeah, that was your nickname in college, if I'm not mistaken, Thomas. Buzzy Wagon.
Buzzy.
If I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, Buzzy Wagon.
Yeah.
Well, we don't need to share that.
We don't talk about that anymore.
Soon.
Yeah. But what does this tell you? Like, just what is this? The connection. You talk about the connection between seemingly random things. What could that mean?
Well, there's kind of 2 ways of looking at specifically the concept of, these beaver-related places and their weirdness. Some researchers believe that certain place names attract weirdness. To look into that, Lauren Coleman's work on Twilight language and the copycat effect is definitely a great place to start. Many other researchers have discussed this concept of certain place names just being places that are weirder than others. On the flip side, to me, it's also evidence that weird things happen everywhere. There may be places, there may be geographical, things that stand out that seem to attract more odd phenomena, but at the end of the day, no matter where there are people, there's going to be things that we don't understand.
So because we're a beaver-centric podcast, we're going to be looking for things in these beavers. If we look hard enough, we're going to be able to find something that kind of fits into the little boxes that we've carved out. But
like grave boxes, like coffins.
I mean, if you want to bury someone in a box, absolutely.
Right.
But so it seems like there might be an idea that the beaver, which I understand is a very powerful connection to a lot of earthly wisdom and has a very strong significance for a lot of cultures, that could possibly be attracting some of this phenomenon?
Well, I mean, from a layman's standpoint, honestly, I don't think people think that beavers are that interesting or odd or, we might even say powerful. But if you look mythologically speaking, they actually have a very, important role in a lot of, especially the, first American cultures in this area. The Ojibwe had the great beaver, Wabameek, actually as kind of an enemy of Nanabush, who of course is one of their main trickster deities. They warred for a long time until finally kind of coming to terms with one another and, were considered pretty much equals. And then again, in Sioux culture too, the beaver is one of the 4 kind of creative deities or almost primordial deities. So there is definitely, again, looking at these traditions, there is a lot of power to the beaver as an animal, as a concept, as an abstract being.
Thomas said that beavers are a highly spiritual animal, and you agreed with this. I feel like this is the first I've heard that the beaver is a highly spiritual animal. What does that mean?
Again, and this is going back to, the cultures of the first Americans. And, I think that too, it's important to look at all of these different stories as separate, cultural myths and cultural concepts, as opposed to just lumping them all in as one. So, but it does seem as though there are, across many of these distinct cultures and distinct creation myths, the beaver is kind of right there at the start in many of them. So it's really cool. But if you think about it as the animal too, it's a builder. It's something that transforms the landscape more than most other animals do. So it's sort of inherent in the animal itself, and you can see that built into abstraction throughout these many varied myths.
Well, I'm an idiot because I just thought you guys thought the beavers prayed a lot or something. So
that could be.
They may.
What else do you do in that dam that you've built?
That's true.
Yeah, they got to build their damn chapels.
And hope the dam doesn't break.
Absolutely.
I guess so. You eat wood, don't you?
Don't they gnaw on it?
No, they eat it.
They're not eating all the wood, are they?
Not all of it, but they do eat wood.
Okay. I feel like this is information that we should know if we're going to be on a podcast called the Great Beaver
You're
Podcast.
questioning the wildlife specialist here as to what beavers eat?
Let's go to this question. So I'm wondering, we hear a lot of like Bigfoot is a cryptid, right? So it's a strange creature?
Well, and again, that kind of bleeds into the high strangeness aspect. So yes, conventionally speaking, Bigfoot is a cryptid, or, in the truest sense of the word, cryptozoology is simply the study of hidden animals. So way back in the turn of the last century would have been considered romantic zoology. You're looking at this as like the study of things that are not confirmed yet, like the gorilla would have been considered a cryptid if we were using that terminology at the time. In my opinion, and again, I kind of think that there's room enough in the universe for multiple theories to possibly be correct. I think that it does seem as though there is a physical, material, cryptid-type Bigfoot, but that many of these encounters that people experience, it seems to be something other, I guess is the best way to put it. You have these encounters where people, see a Sasquatch that vanishes into thin air. One of my personal favorites, a woman had a Bigfoot come onto her porch and she was so frightened that she actually shot at it. Instead of it, appearing injured or, getting enraged, it simply kind of exploded into a shower of sparks. So these encounters, are kind of what I'm more interested in because, again, they seem to play into this larger, almost cultural or psychological narrative that I think has a very deep connection to what it means to be human.
Is Bigfoot just a Pacific Northwest situation? Our friends out in Beaverton, Oregon, or are there Bigfoot sightings beyond the PFC? PFN. Pacific
Northwest.
PNW. I'm sorry.
W.
KFC is that's Kentucky. I was thinking of
a
something
different
else.
animal.
I don't know if Bigfoot's at KFC, but
Tastes like
across-
chicken, though. I hear. Sorry.
No, that's totally fine. Bigfoot is, not even just across the U.S., but in places where you wouldn't really think it would be. There are sightings of Bigfoot-like creatures even in the U.K., and especially within the U.S., it's across all 50 states. Although there is, again, a lot of sightings in the Pacific Northwest, which I will say is an environment that could handle some sort of undiscovered large primate. You also have sightings in Florida. You have sightings on the East Coast. You have sightings in Wisconsin. Wisconsin has a hotbed of Bigfoot sightings.
I thought we were Wolfman territory. We
And
could be
Wolfman,
both, though.
yeah.
Okay.
Oh, yes.
So what does that tell you? Do you feel that there's a mystical component to this Bigfoot idea, or are we talking maybe just about feral humans that somehow managed to figure out a way to stay concealed from the rest of society?
So that's what you do on the weekend.
Yes, that's true. Right.
See, if that could be confirmed, then we could solve some sightings around here. I do think, again, that there's a potential for both. There are certain encounters where it just seems like, someone sees something, a large primate-looking thing.
And it will leave footprints.
Yep, leaves
that
footprints,
can
leaves
be
hair,
cast.
which, and the footprints, Jeff Meldrum is one of the leading kind of researchers on the footprint angle. He's actually come forward to say that there's no way a layperson or even someone with specialized training could create the level of intricacy in these tracks. So it does seem like there are encounters which are simply some sort of undiscovered primate. Jane Goodall even has come forward to say that there's no reason a primate population couldn't exist in some of America's more, kind of rugged wilderness. On the flip side, when you have sightings within the confines of Madison, Wisconsin, then it starts to get weird, especially when said Bigfoot, and again, this was in one of Linda Godfrey's books, I believe, Hunting the American Werewolf, someone had a sighting of a Bigfoot which seemed to transmogrify into a man-wolf. So this is something which I think, again, people would love to write this stuff off as, oh, well, it's just a few crazy people reporting these extremely high strangeness sightings. But the level of patterning between these sightings and the fact that it comes from people from all walks of life, with nothing to gain and everything to lose from reporting, these sightings, I think that there's something else there. As to what that is, that's the big question of paranormal research.
You mentioned earlier effigy mounds. Are there beaver effigy mounds?
Yes, I believe so. It gets interesting because one of the most common effigy mound types is the water spirit or water panther. And so I've noticed a lot of these kind of bleed over into beaver effigy mounds as well, which again goes into the mythology where the thunderbirds who, traditionally were consistently rivals of the water spirits, the water panthers, would refer to them almost in a derogatory fashion as beavers, to kind of just be like, oh, well, you're not a water spirit, you're a beaver, just this little kind of rodent creature. So, but yes, I believe so.
Is a beaver a rodent? Another thing I feel like we should know if we're hosting a podcast called
family.
The rhododendra?
Yeah.
Isn't that a plant?
That's a flower.
Well, I said rodenta.
Oh, rodenta.
Oh, rodentia?
Okay. So isn't that rodent?
Rodentus.
I think it is because other rodents have magnesium in their teeth and beavers have iron.
We're going to be
the wildlife.
Or melatonin.
Or melatonin, as I thought.
Let us know.
We're going to be far more educated on the beaver for our second podcast. We'll know if it's a mammal or a rodent or whatever.
I have, I guess this is my last follow-up question. So I'm going to blame Patrick Swayze for this, but I usually think of ghosts as human beings. But is it possible that a beaver could be a ghost? Are there animal ghosts? Do we know anything about that?
Do they do pottery, too, I think is the big question.
Beaver pottery.
Beaver pottery, right.
There have been ghosts of every sort of animal. I am on the lookout now for a beaver ghost. I will let you guys know when I find that because I bet you it's out there. Cat ghosts, dog ghosts, chicken ghosts, the ghosts of Chicken Alley. As Chad Lewis, another Wisconsin researcher, has investigated, people believe they've run over some farmers' chickens. Get out of the car, can't find the foul carnage anywhere. Go up to the house, the farmer says, I don't have chickens. So chicken ghosts, monkey ghosts, yeah, I am sure there's a beaver ghost somewhere.
Well, it'd be hard to spot because if it's a beaver ghost, it's probably haunting a beaver dam.
I was going to say, are there haunted dams?
I had a friend in college that we called foul damage. It was...
Foul damage.
So are these the type of things that you talk about on Just Another Tinfoil Hat, your YouTube page, and maybe in your book as well?
Absolutely. So yeah, my channel tends to focus on high strangeness cases and even cases that maybe are considered to be, one of those classic UFO cases or classic ghost cases. I still manage to find something extra weird about it.
So,
yes,
Jinx. Are jinxes real? Do you know that? Is that something we could sort out?
I think they're man-made.
Yeah, that.
Oh, okay.
Jinxes
Well, that's
are
kind
man-made.
of real.
You bring them upon yourself.
Want to say thank you, Zelia Edgar, for joining us today and for keeping us weird here on the Great Beaver Fiasco.
Wait, we're keeping her. She's not going anywhere. She's staying for the main topic.
Well, I never said that you were throwing her away. You're able to stick around for our main topic today,
Absolutely,
right?
And I will say thank you again for having me on and having me on in the next segment as well.
Oh, thanks for
our
joining
pleasure.
us. We really appreciate it.
We're going to be back with our three favorite things, each of us, so a 12 total.
A dozen.
Of what we love about Beaver Dam. Our main topic of conversation today brought to you by Great Harvest in Beaver Dam. You can find them on Front Street. Looking for a delicious sandwich, looking for something new, looking for something super sweet, LA.
Or a good cup of coffee.
You'll find it at Great Harvest. We'll be back right more with the Great Beaver Fiasco.
The Ozarks of Arkansas have got Beaver Lake. Beaver Water's drunk by 1 in 7 in the state. Beaver Dam, Mississippi's a nice duck hole place to have a hot dang beaver darn great damn day.
Guys, I don't know about you, but when I'm embarrassed, which is like all the time, I want to know that there is some stability, there is some grain, there is some grit in my diet. I need some high fiber, I need lots of flavor, and there is only one option, Beaver Dam, that can fit those needs.
Well, wait a second. But when I want a delicious, the best cinnamon roll that I've ever tasted, are we going to the same place?
That's a good question. Are we going to the same place, Greg?
Well, I mean, sometimes I just want to go and get like a towel that says like Beaver Dam 53916 or some other interesting gadgets that are representative of our local area. Is there a place that fits the bill for all three of those?
Special guest Zelia Edgar, is there a special place?
I don't know, but I do like to drink coffee. And, I also have this terrible curse that I'm the only one in my family that likes scones. So I am never allowed to make them. I am sconeless at home. But there is one place I go to for all my scone needs.
Great Harvest Bread Company.
We are back with the Great Beaver Fiasco, and we are going to be talking about our favorite things.
In Beaver Dam.
To get your list down to 3, LA.
It was difficult, let me tell you, because there's so much to love about Beaver Dam.
Wisconsin.
So we're not going to start with me. Well, there's probably a lot to love about all the different Beaver Dams.
Beaver
but
Dam, Kentucky.
The Beaver Dam that we live in, Beaver Dam, Wisconsin, we decided to come up with 3 of our favorite things.
It was hard to narrow down, too.
It was. So who are we going to start with? Thomas.
Why don't we start with our special guest today?
Quick question before I didn't mean to interrupt you. I'm sorry. Is she gonna give all 3 or are we gonna give one at a time?
Oh, good question.
A round robin.
Round robin.
Start with Zelia, then go down, and then I'll give 2 and go back.
I think that would be like a round beaver, technically, but okay.
Beaver?
I think it counts. All right.
Okay. Yeah.
Zelia.
All right. Well, my first thing is probably the kitschiest ice cream shop in the universe, Blue Boy. I love that place. It looks like it is out of a Twilight Zone episode, and aside from having, ice cream, which is always fantastic, it also has a winner every time claw machine. For someone who is terrible at claw machines, such as myself, it's a great little ego boost, and you get the kitschiest plastic things in plastic capsules that you could ever want or need. So Blue Boy is kind of my number 3.
Boy, I really have to agree with you there. There's a little known thing about Beaver Dam, Wisconsin's Blue Boy, and that there's this one time a year where this guy goes in there and just says, I'm buying all the ice cream for everyone today.
What?
And
When
so
does that happen?
I don't remember. I don't know.
Of course.
I've heard tell of that. He's like some mythological character, like Santa Claus or the Mad Gasser of Mattoon. I don't know.
The Mad
7
Gasser?
foot tall. He's got glowing orbs in his hand. It's amazing.
Well, I think I'm going to go in there every day just so I can experience that. Every day that they're open.
I agree with you completely about Blue Boy. In fact, my number 3 favorite thing about Beaver Dam, Wisconsin, is something that's right across the street from Blue Boy, or at least was at one point, and that is the Beaver Dam Area Community Theater Building, which you mentioned in the last segment when we were talking about paranormal activities in the city of Beaver Dam. My kids went to all the plays there. They acted in plays. When we were done, we'd go over to Blue Boy. It's got such a rich history here. It's going on over 50, 60 years now, I want to say. They're in a new, beautiful facility just a couple blocks away that doesn't appear to be as haunted as their old location, but that's okay. Maybe they could find new ways to haunt it. And it's just, I think, a crown jewel in the city of Beaver Dam.
I agree. One of my favorite things about Beaver Dam is Beaver Dam Lake.
Ooh.
There was one year, I believe it was 2016 to 2017, starting on the Ides of March, I took a picture of the lake every day.
Oh, cool.
For an entire year.
From the same location?
It varied here or there, but our favorite location is the end of Oneida Street where the street turns into the lake. It's on our walking route. And it's always, depending on the season too, it's always a different, beautiful view of the lake, whether there's a sunset, whether it's cloudy.
In Oneida, I know that well. I take my dog down there. There are 2 streets that go right to the lake. One of them is Oneida, and the other one is Burnett. And local historian Roger Knoll told me once that there is a published article in whatever the Beaver Dam newspaper was called in the 1800s about some kids who were at the Burnett, the drop-off over there, and saw a silver cigar-shaped spaceship come up out of the water and fly away really quick, and they ran all the way, I guess, to the center of town, which is quite far away, because that would be where the chamber is now and the community theater in Blue Boy. And they ran all the way over there to tell their parents about it, and their parents were like, "Oh, you kids are crazy," and everything like that. So,
not much has changed, I guess.
Not much has changed.
I can't wait to have Roger Knoll on. And speaking of Roger Knoll's specialty history, I'm going to have to go for my number 3, the Dodge County Fair. Now, it's right outside of Beaver Dam.
Nearby.
Starting in 1886, there is a mural right in the front street of the fair when it opened up. The world's greatest fair at one point. And there's just a lot of memories of going there, spending a lot of money. I've been complaining that I didn't have enough funnel cake. But that would definitely be my number 3 favorite thing about Beaver Dam. Zelia, what is your number 2?
Number 2 is going to be the Beaver Dam Community Library. Again, you're talking about memories. I have so many good memories of just, being a kid, going to the library, picking up books. It always seemed like such a special kind of excursion. I loved reading as a kid, still do today. And, that was honestly, I've got a lot of fantastic memories there. Also, seeing various speakers such as Chad Lewis, Wisconsin paranormal investigator. It's just fantastic to have this, place in a small town that, brings people in to talk about their books and, again, just kind of dispenses knowledge in that way. I can't underscore the importance of having, a place like that it's free to pick up something that, again, books, stories, information, however you look at it, it changes your life. So the library is number 2 on my list.
It's so interesting because number 2 on my list is the old library.
Oh, geez.
Which is the Williams Free Library, which is, you were talking about that as well earlier in the program. It is now the home of the Dodge County Historical Society. The architecture there is just amazing. It's easily the most beautiful structure, I would say, in the city of Beaver Dam. I believe the architectural type is Romanesque, if I'm not mistaken.
Richardsonian Romanesque. If I'm not mistaken.
Wow.
Whoa.
The items inside there, they've got exhibits that detail the city of Beaver Dam and kind of the surrounding area's history going back to Native American times. They've got a little schoolhouse in there that my kids loved playing in with this list of rules that teachers must follow, like they're not allowed to show their ankles and they have to let the principal know when they're going out of town and they can't be seen with boys and all that kind of stuff. They've got military exhibits and it's absolutely wonderful. It's got a little bit of a history of haunting, as you had mentioned earlier. it's a wonderful place to go. Bring the kids. I know people that I have friends who went there and they fell in love. They didn't know each other before they went there, and now they're like super tight. And it's such like a wonderful, remarkable place, I think, in our community.
The creepiest thing about that building is in the basement. It's the green giant mannequin just staring at you right when you enter the door there.
Because we used to have a green giant processing facility here. Now, I think it's Birdseye now, if I'm not mistaken. It was always in that same kind of area. Entrepreneurship, business is another big exhibit over there at the Dodge County Historical Society. The former Williams Free Library, which was the first open stack library, which basically meant you didn't have to go up to the counter and tell the librarian what kind of book you want. You could just go and get your own book and then bring it to the librarian. First one in the United States, by some accounts.
Amazing.
Just fascinating, beautiful architecture, great place, a crown jewel of Beaver Dam.
And speaking of architecture, that's one of my favorite things about Beaver Dam is the architecture, especially I'm a little biased towards the home that I live in. It was built for Charles Burchard, who has a street named after him. He was a minister and judge in the area, and it's just a very unique house, and Beaver Dam does have such unique architecture. There's so many homes that are just so beautiful, and there's even a book printed about the architecture of Beaver Dam, and my house is in the book. It's a Gothic Victorian house. So I love the architecture in this town of ours.
How old is your house?
It was built in 1866. Obviously, it needs a lot of love right now, which we're going to be going in the process of doing that this upcoming year. But there's no other house like my house as far as being a Gothic Victorian house. It's just very unique, and that's not uncommon in the city of Beaver Dam. There are so many unique homes in the city of Beaver Dam.
And no need for the Find a Grave site because you can find Charles Burchard's grave pretty close nearby.
That's right.
Actually.
You can.
Yes, we've actually been there. He is buried alongside his wife and one of his children.
Oh.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I believe in Beaver Dam's oldest cemetery, right? The one.
It
the
is
city cemetery, I
City
believe,
Cemetery.
right?
Yep.
It's across from Casey's General Store, isn't it, I think?
I believe so, yeah.
Free shout out.
Get a slice of pizza and visit a grave.
That's right.
That's
Visit
the whole
anyone's
afternoon.
grave. Yeah. Maybe you'll want to go during the cemetery walk that the Dodge County Historical Society hosts there every October.
Yeah, I'd love to volunteer to be the voice of like Mrs. Burchard.
Oh, that would be really cool. You should absolutely do that.
I mean, I do know what, thanks to Roger Knoll and Anita from the library, Anita Strike from the library, I do know what Charles Burchard looks like. Looked like.
Is there are photographs of him?
Yes, he's a very odd-looking man.
If I'm not mistaken, also a fan of very odd hats.
Yeah.
Oh.
His hat is like a combination of actually like a bonnet and a top hat.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's very unusual.
A bonnet hat. Okay. Burchard.
Going to my number 2, kind of in the culture vein that you guys mentioned with the library and then architecture, I have to go with the Beaver Dam Cinema Building. And it's taken some different names in the last decade or so, but I have a lot of great memories of seeing movies there for the first time, like Finding Nemo, I think Deadpool with my sister. But my favorite memory, and I forget what movie it was, I went there with my mom and sister, and we left the movie. And it turns out that the convertible had the top down when the rainstorm was passed overhead that we didn't know about because we were enjoying the movie. And so everyone went back home with soggy butts. And that is the wettest my behind has ever been. Maybe as wet as a beaver going into its dam on some evening. But the cinema is definitely my number 2, which brings us to our number 1. Zelia, what is your number 1 favorite thing about Beaver Dam?
It is really difficult to pin down just 3, but I think it's even more difficult to pin down the number 1 spot. But, especially coming at this, I'm at my heart a researcher, and especially of the odd and unusual. And so in Wisconsin, it's kind of like a spinning compass. Where do you go? What do you look at first? Because there are so many weird places. And Beaver Dam is a great central location to get almost anywhere. Its proximity to, locations such as Plainfield, the home of Ed Gein. Or if you want to head to Madison, there's tons and tons of history there. Of course, it's a bigger city, too. The Wisconsin Historical Society archives are there as well, which I have used many times. The central location of Beaver Dam to just kind of head off in any direction and find something weird, I think that's got to be my number 1.
Hey, have you done anything on Ed Gein in Just Another Tinfoil Hat in your book or anything like that?
Not yet. Not yet. And I'll say yet in capital letters.
Oh, okay.
Ooh, okay.
All right. Maybe more to come there from Zelia Edgar.
Findagrave.com, you know.
Well, and Ed put many people on that website, quite literally. I would say my number one is downtown Beaver Dam, in particular here in the year 2024, because the downtown has gone through many, many stages. It was hustling, bustling. It was like a State Street in Chicago back in the 40s and 50s. It was like the center of town. There were people, hundreds of people, thousands of people on the streets, and then it kind of went through a bit of a decline over the years. Had its ups and downs. In 2008, there were floods that came in that just ravaged the downtown. We just had the most recent mayor, Becky Gluen, on in her final days before she moved on to a new position. Her predecessor, Tom Kennedy, really isn't given enough credit for the work he did in the downtown. He really gambled our local taxpayer dollars on the hope that state and federal grant funding would pay for the demolition of 13 buildings in the downtown. We basically footed the bill, and lo and behold, a few years later, Beaver Dam was able to reap millions of dollars and pave the way for what Becky Gluen wound up doing then during her tenure when she started 7 years ago. I think we could all agree that downtown Beaver Dam in the last 7 years has gone through a complete renovation, new businesses coming in all the time. It looks beautiful. She put a bunch of money into the downtown facade improvement program, and downtown Beaver Dam has never looked better. And a downtown is really the lifeblood of a community. You want to have a cinema like we have downtown. You want to have a community theater like we have downtown. We have opportunities for food and wonderful festivals down there. I think downtown Beaver Dam is my number one favorite thing about the city of Beaver Dam.
Excellent choice.
And speaking of downtown, there's a little historical marker in the downtown, marking the day that Frederick Douglass came spoke in Beaver Dam. And that's one of my favorite things about Beaver Dam is its history. It's has a very colorful history when you go back and think that it started with the native peoples and the healing springs. And I can't remember the name of the chief. Maybe you can, Zelia, who claims to have lived 120 years because of the healthy springs from Swan City Park.
Yeah, the Winnebago medicine chief known as Muchka.
Oh.
Claimed to be 120 years old because of the healthy spring water.
I think it's believable.
Yeah, I love the history, the rich history that Beaver Dam has.
Frederick Douglass, yes. John F. Kennedy spoke here when he was on the campaign trail. He spoke at the Hotel Rogers, which was featured in the Public Enemies movie with Johnny Depp. You met Johnny Depp during the filming of that, if I'm not mistaken.
I did have a little experience with him. Hotel Rogers, that's the tallest building in Beaver Dam, right? Besides the water tower?
It is. Right, yeah. I think it's 6 stories, I want to say. and it's got interesting architecture and interesting history, and it is really kind of cool looking in there. It didn't make my top 3, but it's an interesting place for sure.
Well, speaking of spiritual waters, and you already mentioned LA, my number one favorite thing in Beaver Dam has to be Swan City Park. Especially in the last couple of years, they made some renovations to the water feature and the bridges. They have that splash pad. That was a huge project that was finished this last summer. And there's just plenty of space for everyone to enjoy something. You have kids yelling on one side. You have a gazebo where someone else can just have a calm time. You have a picnic area. You have swings. It's a park that offers a little bit of something for everyone, over 10 acres. And the band shell having live concerts down there, horseshoes. It's just a nice space for people to get together.
In the 1800s, people were coming from all over the world to Beaver Dam, Wisconsin for those healing springs. If I could bring back one thing, Thomas, and I'm sure you'll agree with me, in the, I want to say the 50s or the 60s, in the beautiful lagoons of Swan Park in Beaver Dam, Wisconsin, they used to have a monkey island with actual monkeys.
The incredible Monkey Island, yes.
We've asked, you and I have asked people that have, in that age group, like, is that a real thing? Like they had live monkeys? And they're like, yeah, sure. They had live monkeys sitting there in the middle of the lagoon.
That's a story for Roger Knoll.
That is a Roger Knoll story
because I'm
for
wondering,
sure.
they were there year round, like through the winter?
Yeah, we don't. What happened to the monkeys? We don't know.
I don't know if they escaped or there was an incident or something that caused the end of it.
I would have to think somebody said, my tax bill is high enough. Do we need to be paying for these monkeys in the park? And I'm guessing they're the first thing. And they're frozen bananas. That's Beaver Dam, Wisconsin, in 12 different variations.
Although I think we need to have a baker's dozen.
Oh, well, what are you thinking? You think we should have one more by consensus, maybe?
I think we should, because there is one place in Beaver Dam that I always recommend to people who are not from here to go get the best treats, the best sandwich, if your favorite sandwich is the cinnamon roll. Or
ours is.
Mine is. I mean, they have great sandwiches as well that are not. The cinnamon rolls, Great Harvest.
Great Harvest Bread Company. It's on Front Street in downtown Beaver Dam. They are the sponsor of this segment. We want to thank them for that. And, go check it out. Have a sandwich. Have a cup of coffee.
Have a cookie.
Have a cookie. Have a good time.
You could also get sliced bread rather than just a cinnamon roll, but that's probably not as delicious.
And you can also have a first date. That becomes a second and a third and a fourth and a fifth and on and on and on and on and on.
That's funny you say that, because my friends who met at the Historical Society, their first date was at Great Harvest.
Really?
Yeah, which I think is cool. It's a nice location. It's right there. Speaking of my favorite being downtown Beaver Dam, it's right there in the heart of downtown Beaver Dam, one of those food options. So that makes 13.
13 baker's dozen.
Wow.
That is an excellent choice.
I wish Taylor Swift would listen to our podcast, because it takes 13 hours to fly from Tokyo to the Super Bowl, where she's performing in her boyfriend's plane.
Name, right? That's like a $1,000 fine.
49ers are 9 plus 4 is 13. Their Super Bowl's on February 11th. 11 plus 2 is 13. I mean, I think I'm making the prediction now that first we get Joe Namath, and then it's a no-brainer. We get Taylor Swift here on the podcast.
That's episode 4.
4 or 5 at least.
I feel it coming.
Yeah, it's down the road. It's not going to happen anytime soon.
Episode 13.
Oh, there you.
Perfect.
See, that's why we love you, LA. That's
one of the many reasons.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Zelia Edgar, we want to say thank you so much for being our first guest today.
Well, thank you so much for having me on this inaugural podcast of the Great Beaver Fiasco. It was fantastic talking about all things weird and beaver related.
Where can people find you?
So look up Just Another Tinfoil Hat on basically anything and I will show up. It's Just Another Tinfoil Hat on YouTube, Just Another Tinfoil Hat on Patreon, and Just Another Tinfoil Hat Presents is the name of my book.
And the next book we don't know the name of yet, but we'll be looking forward to finding that out.
Letters.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
We've heard.
All capitalized. You'll come back and maybe promote that when it's ready to go?
I would love to.
Well, fantastic.
Just like a beaver is slapping its tail against some mud and wood, building its dam. That's exactly what we're doing here. We are building our dam one stick and globule of mud at a time.
Yeah. Damn. All right. That's right. Right here at the Great Beaver Fiasco.
Beaver Dam, Wisconsin's got peonies and parades. Beaverton, Oregon's where shoes are made.
Sorta.
Beaver Dam, everywhere the people all say, have a gosh dang beaver darn great damn day.